18 years ago, due to severe drought, Luo's father was the first to lead the way into the Fox Ridge to fetch water. The villagers became greedy for killing the fox cubs, which provoked retaliation. Only the Luo family survived and became a thorn in the side of the villagers. 18 years later, in July and a half, a retaliation against the Luo family began. A pair of paper figures carrying sedan chairs arrived at the Luo family. Keywords of the novel. The corpse king wants to choose a wife. I am carried on a sedan chair by a paper man without a pop-up window. The corpse king wants to choose a wife. I am carried on a sedan chair by a paper man. Download the full text of the book. The corpse king wants to choose a wife. I am carried on a sedan chair by a paper man. Latest chapters to read. Chapter 1. Opening the Ghost Gate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Opening the Ghost Gate. In July and a half, the Ghost Gate opened, and every Zhongyuan festival, when the local government pardoned crimes, countless ghosts swarmed around the world. Those with homes are taken by strangers, while those without homes wander the streets. Therefore, there are many taboos on this day. Don't hang a bell, don't wear red clothes, don't go out at night, don't point your shoes at the bed. In the year of Luo Qinghuan's birth, the village was in a state of chaos, with no rain seen for 3 years. Not only did the fields open up, but the crops were also in vain, and even the livestock at home were almost extinct. In order to let his wife who had just given birth have a sip of hot congee, Luo Fu took a bucket to the Fox Ridge, where there were some big and small foxes. They were often seen drinking water in Taiying Lake in the forest. The elderly in the village often say that the foxes in the Fox Ridge are all immortal families who have practiced Taoism. They usually do not allow their own children to step on them, fearing that they may disturb the fox immortal cultivation and face retaliation. Despite the severe drought in recent years, very few people dare to go there to fetch water. As time passed, the people in the village did not see any trouble with the Luo family and followed them to fetch water from the Fox Ridge. There were also brave young people who took the lead in digging out foxes and skin. People were brought into the Fox Ridge by themselves, and Luo's father didn't want to see them. He took the initiative to go to the village chief's house and said, "But in these years, who doesn't tighten their belts to live?" Luo's father was scolded by the village chief, and just as he was about to leave, he met a group of strong young men who were leading the way in digging foxes. During the shoving, someone took a black hand, and Luo's father rolled down the foot of the mountain, limping one leg. Within 2 days, the son of the village chief's family died at home, with his intestines streaming all over the ground and his heart hanging from the beam of the house. The house was covered in fox footprints of all sizes. Later on, all the families who had been exposed to fox blood at Fox Ridge suffered, either being hit by stones when going out or getting stuck in their throats when eating. However, the Luo family, who was the most advanced in the forest, was fine and became a target of many arrows. Luo's mother was mocked by the village women every now and then, and she didn't do well for the whole month, falling ill all over. The couple who used to love talking and laughing are both dull. Grandma Luo couldn't bear the gossip of the villagers and took a few days to swallow her anger. The village name chewed its tongue again and began to say that Luo Qinghuan, who was still in his infancy, was a malevolent star who would kill his own milk. It was thanks to the blessings of the ancestors of the Luo family that Luo Qinghuan was born obedient and beautiful, and safely grew up to the age of 18. Until the Qingming festival of this year, after Luo Qinghuan returned from ancestral worship, he kept having the same dream. In her dream, she was stiff and her thoughts were chaotic. She sat in a good sedan chair with a smile on her face, surrounded by shadows. At first, Luo Qinghuan thought it was a bit novel. After all, she had never seen such an ancient means of transportation before, at most she had only seen it in TV dramas. But such eerie scenes appeared day after day in her dreams, and every time a corner of the sedan curtain was blown up by the wind, revealing the woods outside, she woke up in shock. A piercing chill swept through my body, and even with the addition of the bed and blanket, I couldn't see any warmth. The interior of the sedan chair is finely carved, and the fabrics used are all of high quality. It is not something that ordinary people can use, at least stronger than those used by ancient first class officials. As the college entrance examination approached, she felt that she might have been under too much pressure lately. However, she couldn't help but fantasize that if she could hold a Chinese-style wedding when she got married, it would be great to sit in such a good sedan chair. Because she was afraid that Luo's mother would teach her such an absurd dream at a young age, Luo Qinghuan didn't dare to tell her family. It wasn't until the 7th night when she woke up in a panic that she was ready to go downstairs and wash her face. I didn't expect that the lights in the bathroom were still on at this point, and the door wasn't closed either. Luo Qinghuan thought that her father or mother had forgotten to close the door when she woke up in the middle of the night, but she didn't take it to heart and pushed open the door. However, she was frightened and lost her soul. The usually clean wash basin and bathtub were filled with bloody, sticky, and greasy raw meat. A chicken head with no eyeballs fell from the doorknob to the ground with a click sound, and even the light was clearly marked with blood. The quiet space was eerie everywhere, with a constant smell of blood pouring into her nose. Luo Qinghuan's legs became weak and she stumbled back, her first reaction being to knock on Luo's father and mother's door. Unexpectedly, just after turning around and running for a few steps, something slipped and fell to the ground, and my head hit the corner of the table heavily, completely losing consciousness. Closing my eyes, I vaguely saw a black shadow rushing towards me. When she woke up, she was already in the hospital. Luo Mu was lying asleep by the bed, wearing pajamas and messy hair, clearly staying up all night. "Mom, where's my dad?" Luo Qinghuan stood up and shook her mother awake, her tone very urgent. Luomu's eyes were filled with a large bundle of tears, which fell down and choked up as she replied. "Qinghuan, your father has fallen for evil. Last night, he stood on my bedside with a kitchen knife in hand. If it weren't for the commotion caused by you falling outside, Mom would have been gone. Your dad ran out like crazy when he didn't strike with a knife. Mom has already called your uncle and his team to find him, but there's still no news yet." Upon hearing this, Luo Qinghuan's head began to ache again. She couldn't figure out how her father had fallen for evil in a good way, and when she touched her head, she found that she had a thick layer of gauze wrapped around her head. Fortunately, it wasn't her face that she had hit, and Luo Qinghuan's hanging heart was relieved. Luomu cried for a while and comforted her to rest well. Then she received a phone call and hurried back. When she wanted to ask again, Luomu sternly scolded her child not to worry about adults. Luo Qinghuan pursed her mouth and didn't dare to say much. She sat in bed with a drooping head and waited for a day, but didn't receive any news. When the nurse came over to change the water during the period, she said that Luo Qinghuan probably knew that she didn't hit too hard, but the head was still the key to the human body. However, for safety reasons, she needed to be hospitalized for 2 days of observation. Lying in the hospital, Luo Qinghuan still felt very secure. Not long after nightfall, she fell asleep. This time, that strange dream appeared again. Strangely, she did not wake up as she had done a few times before, but instead saw with clear thinking that she had been carried by the group of paper people into a deeper forest. According to Luo Qinghuan's memory, that place was not elsewhere, but the forbidden area where the villagers turned pale. Fox Ridge. Recalling the rumors in the village before, Luo Qinghuan felt a chill on her back. Among all the families who had been to Fox Ridge, only their Luo family had not had any problems. Since childhood, the village aunt has secretly discussed how she killed her grandmother. She really wanted to jump off the sedan chair and escape, but her body seemed to be completely immobile as if it wasn't her own. Time passed by, and Luo Qinghuan was so anxious that she almost cried, but still had a smile on her face. Finally, Luo Qinghuan exerted all her strength to bite through the tip of her tongue. It was said that dealing with ghosts was the best, but she didn't believe it before. Now she can only treat a dead horse as a living horse doctor. Fortunately, the method was effective. She jumped off the sedan chair and stumbled on her clothes. She lowered her head and realized that her wish had come true. She cursed inwardly and ran towards home. Luo Qinghuan, your family's retribution has come. Do you want your father to live? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Entering the Ghost House. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Entering the Ghost House. The man's voice was cold and magnetic, with a hint of laziness, unable to distinguish where it came from, causing Luo Qinghuan's heart to tremble. Revenge. Has her family's retribution come? Luo Qinghuan suddenly woke up from the hospital bed in a cold sweat. The nurse on duty saw her face full of fear and warmly comforted her. Little sister, your injury is not serious. You should be discharged tomorrow. Don't put too much psychological pressure on yourself. It turned out that the nurse woke him up, and Luo Qinghuan breathed a sigh of relief and thanked him gratefully. Okay, I got it, thank you. The little nurse saw that she was fine and advised her to rest well before going to another ward. The next morning, Luo Qinghuan couldn't sit still. Just as dawn broke, she had already completed the discharge procedures and rushed home. Just as she arrived at the village entrance, she saw her uncle hurriedly passing by with a pale face. Her heart pounded and she quickly ran a few steps to catch up. Uncle, has my dad found it yet? Luo Zhongping was startled when he saw her, and then waved his hand to signal her to walk while speaking. Luo Qinghuan dare not delay, hurry up and keep up. Qinghuan, why did your child run back on his own? Didn't your mother say he still needs to be hospitalized for observation for 2 days? Your father hasn't been found yet. Your mother and I have searched for several nearby immortals, but as soon as they heard about your family, they drove us out. Sigh. It is said that the move cannot provoke the Fox Fairy in Fox Ridge. Luo Zhongping sighed and walked quickly, while Luo Qinghuan jogged along the way to barely catch up. It was then that he found out that Luo's mother had already reported to the police, but had found nothing. In addition, he was repeatedly driven out by several immortals and fainted without coming up in one breath. Her uncle is rushing to take someone to the hospital. Luo Qinghuan had already walked back from the hospital, and coupled with the fact that he had been in poor spirits for the past few days, his face turned pale and pale. It was even more urgent to learn that Luo's mother had fainted. Fortunately, there was no major problem after being sent to the hospital, but I was reminded to rest well. After Luo Mu finished drinking water and the three of them returned from the hospital, it was already night. After washing up, they went upstairs and lay down on the bed before falling asleep. At the entrance was the forest from last night, and Luo Qinghuan cursed inwardly. Subconsciously, he wanted to continue running back, but his feet were like pouring 1,000 barrels of lead, making it difficult to move a single step. Luo Qinghuan, do you want your father to live? The man's voice rang out again, with a seductive and lazy tone. What kind of person are you? Do you know where my dad is? Did you take my dad? Luo Qing asked with a trembling voice, his heart pounding with fear. Ha! My lord's murder has never been as troublesome as this. This is all the debt your father owed when he took the lead in entering the Fox Ridge. A thick fog rises, and the mountains and forests are surprisingly quiet. A red shadow comes from the mist, with a face like a crown of jade, long hair like ink, phoenix eyes with a smile and majesty, and red lips slightly hooked, making it even more charming. Wearing the same bright red wedding dress as herself, it still shows a strong and thin waistline. And behind him, it seemed like the team of welcoming paper people. Luo Qinghuan's eyes were mesmerized. After living for 18 years, she had never seen such an outstanding person before. For a moment, she forgot her fear and stared at the man, unwilling to leave Fenhale. If you obediently return to the mansion and marry me now, I will not blame you for your recent escape from marriage and can also save your family's life. But if you don't know what's good or bad, I guarantee that your whole family won't survive tomorrow in the hands of that group of foxes. You need to think clearly. As he spoke, the man had already come close, and the distance between the two had narrowed. Luo Qinghuan could even clearly feel the chill on his body. She gave a shiver, only to realize that she was too close to the man and instinctively avoided a few steps. With lightning racing in her mind and reminiscent of what happened last night, Luo Qinghuan had to believe that her father had indeed been retaliated by the fox immortal. It was only after many years that only the Luo family had an accident until now. Another thing is that the male ghost in front of me is dressed in ancient clothing, and it looks like a ghost that has been dead for thousands of years. It is reasonable to say that he should be able to create such a great show. Such a ghost in the underworld should be a hot commodity. Why did she find her? I don't know you at all. How do I know if you have the ability to ensure the safety of my family? Although Luo Qinghuan is young, he is not foolish either. There is still no definite news about Luo's father's accident, and she will not easily believe a stranger. Therefore, the current plan can only be postponed. But just a few wild foxes, how can't I protect you with my own means? Who wouldn't speak big? Luo Qinghuan stared at him, remained silent, and his expression was clearly 3 words. I don't believe you. The man appeared very displeased with Luo Qinghuan's questioning, and then domineeringly waved his hand to send Luo Qinghuan back to the sedan chair. Put away your petty thoughts and obediently follow me back to my mansion. This is your only way out. Luo Qinghuan stared at the fleeting scene with a bewildered expression on her face, losing control of her body once again. This time, she couldn't even exert the strength to bite her tongue, and she was about to cry foolishly, "Can you die by saying a few good words? Why does she put all her heart into her face?" The sound of Suona music rang out again, and the paper people walked in the mountains carrying sedan chairs with smiles. When Luo Qinghuan was helped down by the paper people wearing big red flowers, he only felt his ears buzzing and his face stiff. A grand mansion appeared in front of me, with big red lanterns and red silk hanging at the entrance. I could vaguely hear the bustle of people in the courtyard, but the 2 words written on the plaque, Luo Qinghuan, did not understand. Suddenly becoming blind, Luo Qinghuan felt a bit uncomfortable in her heart. The bride is here. After a sharp and cheerful voice, many figures came out of the house, and then Luo Qinghuan, like a puppet, followed the reminder from the nearby Xinyan and completed the ceremony with the man in red. She was driven crazy in her heart, regretting that she wanted Face to suffer. If I had the audacity to tell my parents about this earlier, maybe there wouldn't have been the current situation. After the paper people escorted her into the room, they rushed out and left her sitting on the wedding bed with a stiff spine. Luo Qinghuan prepared to bite her tongue and slip away while no one else was working hard. Crunch, the sound of opening the door rang out, and Luo Qinghuan's mind went blank in fear. Then he felt a small hand resting on his lap. He. Look at the bride, he. After the sound of wheezing milk, a gust of wind blew, and Luo Qinghuan suddenly regained her freedom. Before she could even see the little ghost who had saved her, she tore off the red cap on her head and rushed out. The house was very large, even more magnificent than those in ancient dramas. Luo Qinghuan was both anxious and afraid in his heart, having no idea about the southeast, northwest, or east. In no time, he lost himself in the courtyard. There was not even a ghost on the way, and she felt like her heart was about to jump out of her throat. I can rest assured that you can agree to marry my old lady Qinghuan. In this way, my son's family's life can be saved. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Su Chen'an. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Su Chen'an. An elderly voice rushed in, and Luo Qinghuan's panicked cat entered the rockery in the courtyard. Through the gaps in the rocks, I vaguely saw the big red clothes in the pavilion ahead. It's the man who kidnapped her. Just now it seems like her grandmother. Luo Qinghuan had never seen her grandmother, and there was no photo left at home except for a plaque. In addition, the gap between the rocks was not large enough, so she was unable to catch a glimpse of the person speaking in full. However, judging from the way they spoke, Grandma Luo showed great respect for the man in red. Could it be that this marriage was facilitated by the old lady? Luo Qinghuan is almost crying. He has never seen his ancestors pit his descendants like this before. Hesitating whether or not to rush out and argue with them, asking grandma to take him home, the man in the pavilion with his back to her suddenly turned his head. Luo Qinghuan, do you want to run again? Damn it. Got caught. Does this man have long eyes on his back? You can tell from such a distance that she is hiding behind the rockery. Luo Qinghuan shrank her neck and hugged her head with both hands. Grandma, save me. I don't want to stay here. I haven't lived enough yet and I don't want to die. Milk. She yelled and retreated, the lanterns in the courtyard dimly lit. After stepping on them, she happened to fall into a cold embrace. It goes without saying that normal people don't have such a fast pace of cheating, she screamed even more happily. Grandma, I am the only child in the Luo family. How could you bear to pull me to the underworld so early? Stop yelling, I won't eat you again. What's that noise like? If someone else sees it, they may think that I abused my bride on the day of my wedding. The man, feeling anxious, covered Luo Qinghuan's mouth when he saw that she was causing a lot of trouble. With a stern expression on his face, he coaxed her and said, Be good, will you save your father and return home after today's wedding? Speaking of Luo's father, Luo Qinghuan's eyes lit up and he opened his eyes to look at the pavilion. Where else could there be the shadow of his grandmother? Most likely left while she was shouting. Kissing is unreliable, so Luo Qinghuan can only look at the man with a heavy heart. Are you serious? The wet and slightly fearful eyes clung to the man's face, and only then did Luo Qinghuan realize that her hand was pulling on his chest. The collar was pulled loose and flaccid, revealing a jade-like skin that was very sturdy, cool, and without any ups and downs. Luo Qinghuan's face brushed with a fiery brush, and in the next moment, the scene changed. The red candle in the wedding room ignited on its own, burning diligently until dawn. The next day, the rooster crowed 3 times, and Luo Qinghuan opened her eyes weakly, vaguely remembering the man's whispers in his ear. My husband's name is Su Chen'an, my name is Chen'an. Suppressing discomfort and getting up, Luo Qinghuan secretly threw her bed sheets into the washing machine, hung them up, and returned to the room cursing. Su Chen'an, that bastard, promised to go and save her father. Qinghuan, let's go downstairs for dinner. Luo Mu set up the dishes and shouted downstairs. Luo Qinghuan's thoughts were pulled back and she forced herself to hold on to the grievances. Just as he arrived at the dining table and pulled out his chair, he came towards her house in a noisy manner, and then Luo Zhongping began to smash the door outside. Sister-in-law, open the door quickly. My brother is back. After finishing this sentence, Luo Mu didn't even care about eating. She threw away the dishes and pulled Luo Qinghuan out. At the west end of the village, Luo's father was limping towards home. His body was covered in blood, and the soles of his shoes were stained with mud. He looked as if he was 3 or 5 years old, and the haggard wind would blow him down. The village names around him were pointing at him, nothing but words of retribution, such as why he hasn't died yet. Luo Qinghuan finally understood. Each of these people had a very malicious heart, but they couldn't see how well the Luo family was. Luo Zhongping pushed away the villagers watching the play and went to help Luo's father with his mother. In the crowd, the silly second sister in the village emerged from somewhere and tugged at Luo Qinghuan's clothes, shouting crazily. Bride, bride, hee hee. Bride. Silly second sister was chubby, taller than Luo Qinghuan by more than 2 heads, with extraordinary strength. In the blink of an eye, she rushed closer, leaving Luo Qinghuan helpless and oppressed. Luo Qinghuan screamed and was carried around by silly second sister, so scared that she covered her coat tightly. Upon seeing this, Luo Mu picked up a wooden stick from the roadside and greeted silly second sister. Silly second sister didn't like to fight either. After being beaten a few times, she reluctantly pinched Luo Qinghuan's cheek and slipped away. Luo Qinghuan was already a non-worker, and the silly second sister immediately made a deep mark on her face, causing her tears to drip down in pain. "Qinghwan, are you okay?" Luomu approached with a heart-wrenching look and cursed angrily. Luo Qinghwan cried and shook her head, not wanting to make Luomu worry. The group returned home, but Luo's father couldn't explain why he was possessed by evil. He only remembered waking up in the woods after falling asleep, with several scratches on his body. The family had a clear understanding that this was closely related to the foxes in the woods. They hurriedly sent Luo's father to the hospital for injections and bandages. The area on Luo Qinghwan's face that had been pinched by the silly second sister was burning with pain, and on the way back to the village, her mind was filled with the 3 words she said when pulling her. The bride. Did silly second sister know about herself and Su Chen'an? Luo Qinghwan felt a faint unease in her heart. Halfway through the car, many green eyes protruded from the surrounding grass, accompanied by the fox's strange howling. Luo Zhongping's hand holding the steering wheel was trembling slightly, and Luo's mother was even more frightened and wiped away her tears. Luo's father remained silent with a grim face, and the atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Luo Qinghwan felt the malice of the fox herd through the car window, and her gloomy eyes made her feel uneasy. The fox herd followed them all the way to the village entrance, although they had nothing to do along the way, they were still separated. Luo's father and mother also clearly felt something was wrong. The foxes grinned one by one, as if they wanted to come forward and tear them apart, but none of them took action, as if they were afraid of something. Several adults met face to face and sent Luo Qing to rest happily. Luo Qinghwan always felt that their family's ability to return safely had something to do with Su Chen'an. After running around all day, she was indeed tired and panicked, so she obediently went upstairs to rest. In the early morning, Luo Qinghwan clearly felt a hint of resentment staring at her. The temperature in the room suddenly dropped, and she lay flat motionless, her body heavy. Is this a ghost crushing the bed? Luo Qinghwan, do you think that holding Su Chen'an and your Luo family can have peace of mind? You are just a lowly mortal, you will grow old. Sooner or later, you will become an old lady. Will Su Chen'an still like you? No, he will still be like that day when he married you, carrying a large sedan chair, gathering guests, and marrying another bride. When the time comes, all the people of the Luo family will die, all will die, all will die. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. A Face by the Window. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. A face by the window. The malicious voice kept echoing in her ears, and Luo Qinghwan felt as if she had been possessed by a ghost, shedding tears of sadness. At that moment, despair was overwhelming, and she even thought of the scene of being mercilessly abandoned after her old age. A wrinkled old lady with gray hair and a handsome young man with a jade tree in the wind, everyone would think that she and Su Chen'an are like grandparents. Is there really no way to protect the Luo family in the long run? According to the voice, Luo Qinghwan's entire heart was said to be in constant danger. She knew that things like Luo's father's infidelity could not be endured by the family for the second time, but fortunately, this situation of ghost pressure on the bed was quickly resolved. After hearing a hysterical scream, the temperature in the room returned to normal. Luo Qinghwan's entire body quickly regained its lightness and struggled to sit up from the bed. There was no difference in the room. A covered wardrobe, a flowing sky blue bed curtain, the carpet is clean and devoid of any dust, even the study reflected in the mirror is neat, and the coffee table reflects a faint halo under the moonlight. After taking a deep breath, Luo Qinghwan prepared to continue sleeping, but before her head touched the pillow, she sat up again in fear. There was clearly a person lying on her bed, and according to the curvature of the blanket, he was still a tall man. In the past 18 years, Luo Qinghwan had never had such intimate contact with any opposite sex except for the day of her dream wedding. She was a bit dazed and couldn't believe what she saw in front of her. After all, she lives on the second floor and has already locked the door before going to bed. It is reasonable for her to be aware of a living person entering her room. No matter how bad it is, she cannot let a big man lie next to her without knowing it. Luo Qinghuan, can you not be so surprised? At least you should remember that you are a married person and sleeping with me is a common occurrence. Moreover, I only saved you from that stinky fox. Under the moonlight, Su Chen'an lay sideways on the bed, propping up his head with one hand and jokingly watching as Luo Qinghuan began to complain, feeling like an abandoned daughter. In law, and Luo Qinghuan was the heartless man. This sudden real-life version of the ghost husband almost startled Luo Qinghuan's chin, and the impact was really too strong. That group of stinky foxes seems to have no intention of letting your family go. After all, so many foxes died in the past and their resentment was great. You can hang this talisman in the study tomorrow to save them from holding back bad water. As Su Chen'an spoke, he conjured up a triangular talisman paper in his hand, which once again refreshed Luo Qinghuan's understanding of ghosts and monsters. In her impression, the most commonly used thing Taoist priests use to deal with ghosts and monsters is talisman paper. Surprisingly, Su Chen'an is teaching her how to use talisman paper to deal with foxes so casually. However, Luo Qinghuan was still willing to accept things that could protect her family. She quickly picked up the talisman paper with both hands, jumped up from the bed, turned on the light, went into the study, hung the talisman paper, and then ran back to the bed in a lively manner. Su Chen watched her movements safely and did not raise any objections. After Luo Qinghuan returned to bed, she didn't hide her curiosity about Su Chen'an, and even reached out a tender white finger to poke Su Chen'an's cheek. Although the husband whom I inexplicably added is not human, this face is really fragrant. Luo Qinghuan definitely dares to swear to heaven that she has lived for 18 years and has never seen such a handsome boy before. The touch of her fingertips is very real, fair and smooth, soft and sticky, just like in her dreams. This scene instantly made Su Chen'an feel like a national treasure giant panda in the zoo, and Luo Qinghuan looked at him with curiosity and joy in his eyes. Su Chen'an. Luo Qinghuan leaned closer to Su Chen'an and tentatively called out the name he had told him in his dream. Mm. Su Chen'an's voice was still so cool and warm. When he was called out, he sat up and lifted the person onto his lap. Is our marriage mediated by Grandma? Yes. When did you pass away? 20. Did you get married before you passed away? Do you have any ambiguous partners? I have only married my wife from my lifetime to my death, and I have always been pure and self-centered. Under the reflection of the chandelier, Luo Qinghuan's hair on her head was particularly pleasing. Her shiny apricot eyes were as sticky as when they first met, sticking to Su Chen'an's face. Paired with her favorite kawaii nightgown, it was really pleasing. That night, she was like a fanatical star chaser, asking Su Chen'an non-stop with a small mouth. At first, Su Chen'an patiently answered her questions one by one, but as time passed, Luo Qinghuan became more and more energetic. He frowned and finally forced a kiss to push her back into bed, ordering her to rest quickly. To be honest, he doesn't quite understand Luo Qinghuan's behavior. Even though she is still alive, why is she so energetic at night like him? The next day, when Luo Qinghuan woke up, Su Chen'an had already disappeared. To be honest, she was a bit conflicted about how to tell her parents that she had married a ghost. Their family has been being harassed by those foxes for a while, and she was really worried that her situation would make Luo's father and mother unable to think about it. The Qingming festival holiday this time only lasted for a few days. After breakfast, she went to pack her things and prepare to return to school. Father Luo didn't trust her to go out alone, so he insisted on taking her to the bus stop. Students from several surrounding villages, as well as villagers who go shopping, have to take a bus to this station. When Luo Qinghuan and his team arrived, there were still many people waiting at the station. However, after about 20 minutes, people around them all got on the bus, leaving Luo Qinghuan squatting in a small ball under the station sign to draw circles. In theory, There is a bus that goes directly to their school every 15 minutes, but it has been over 20 minutes and there is no trace of it. Luo Qinghuan was muttering in her heart, not knowing what the driver was up to. Just as she was getting impatient, a bus stopped in front of Luo Qinghuan, and she saw that it happened to be the one she was waiting for. Due to the high level of mental stress these days and sleeping late last night, Luo Qinghuan began to feel drowsy shortly after getting on the car. Half asleep and half awake, she always felt like someone was sitting on her right side. Strangely, she remembered sitting in the window seat on her right side, without a seat beside her. This cognition quickly dispelled Luo Qinghuan's drowsiness. She forcefully opened her thick eyelids and looked aside, facing a broken ghost face. Half of her face was covered in blood, and her cracked head overflowed with a lot of brain milk. Her eyes, barely in her eyes, greedily stared at her, as if an starving person had seen delicious food and was salivating. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Strange Buses. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Strange Buses. Luo Qinghuan has never seen such a bloody scene before. Opening his mouth without shouting a word, he quickly noticed that the passengers in the carriage were all sitting well, completely unaware of the situation here. Is she the only one in the entire carriage who saw it? At this moment, Luo Qinghuan's mind was spinning rapidly, and she couldn't help but fall into panic. The male ghost outside didn't die normally at first glance. It was definitely not a good thing for him to stare at her like this, and if she got off the car now, she wouldn't be able to get a taxi on the road, let alone talk to everyone. Maybe they will treat me as a mental patient and throw me out of the car. How should we handle this matter? Luo Qinghuan's tangled forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his spine was icy cold. In the blink of an eye, the bus drove out of the dark section, and the warm sunshine poured into the carriage. The male ghost, who was tightly against the glass window, disappeared with a swoop, as if what she had seen before was just an illusion. Luo Qinghuan was holding her backpack, feeling extremely uneasy in her heart. As soon as the bus arrived at the school gate, she picked up her backpack and quickly got off the car, heading straight to the dormitory building. The high school where Luo Qinghuan attended was an 8-person dormitory. When she entered, several young girls in the dormitory were already racing against time to finish their homework. Fortunately, she was more diligent and finished writing at home early. After tidying up the things she brought, Luo Qinghuan carried her homework to the classroom. According to the school's schedule, they had 3 evening self-study sessions every Sunday night. Of course, at the beginning, several teachers would race against time to teach everyone. Later, this behavior was explicitly prohibited by the school, and it became students doing homework and previewing. When passing by the school grove, Luo Qinghuan's shoulder was suddenly patted by someone. This situation is generally her little sister's. Luo Qinghuan naturally turned her head to check. There was no one behind. A chill spread from head to toe, and Luo Qinghuan remembered the dead face on the bus before. At this moment, the trees in the small forest appeared so wide open in her eyes, as if they would always come back to life and drag her into the dark abyss. The mottled shadows on the ground swayed with the cold wind, mocking how small and vulnerable she was in front of these ghosts. Luo Qinghuan quickly turned her head and ran desperately towards the classroom. This day's experience made her feel a bit restless. After finishing her homework, she looked at the pages of the book for a long time without flipping a page. While the teacher was not paying attention, her desk mate Zhu Fian poked her arm with her elbow and said with concern, "Qinghuan, are you okay? You keep staring at the book in a daze." Luo Qinghuan rarely talks to unfamiliar people on weekdays, so she has not had many friends from childhood to adulthood. This girl named Zhu Fian is more timid, and the two of them are sitting at the same table, so their relationship naturally gets better. Luo Qinghuan didn't want to tell her about her experiences at home these days. After all, she couldn't even accept it herself. She was afraid that Zhu Fian would be afraid when she found out, so she smiled and replied, It's okay, it's just that I've been tired from going back to ancestor worship and mountain climbing these past few days, and I feel a bit uncomfortable when I return to school after the holiday. Upon hearing her say so, Zhu Fian nodded in agreement. Indeed, on my way back from ancestor worship, I slipped down a slope, which scared me very much. Fortunately, I didn't get hurt. Speaking of this, Zhu Fian's delicate face was wrinkled into buns, but soon she regained her energy and continued to gossip with Luo Qinghuan. Qinghuan, do you know? The girl named Yao Qin from our neighboring class and I are from the same village. His family has been experiencing strange things recently. Listening to Zhu Fian talk about these things, Luo Qinghuan also came to her senses. She moved her chair and looked at Zhu Fian, gesturing for her to continue speaking. Zhu Fian didn't bother with her either, but approached her and began to tell the story. I heard from the villagers that her father has been doing something wrong since he returned from the grave. He has become lifeless and doesn't work. He always knows to lie at home sleeping, and when he wakes up, he instructs his mother to work and cook. If anything goes wrong, he starts hitting people. Yao Qin is the only daughter in the family, and her father hasn't yelled at her since childhood. This time, he even hit her together. Well, I heard it was a slap that pierced her eardrum and caused a lot of blood to flow. This incident made everyone in the neighborhood aware of it. I took her to the hospital the day before yesterday. Their family tried to find someone to see if they had offended anything, but her father was fierce. He said if anyone dared to find someone, he would take care of his own house. A good person suddenly has a big change in temperament, which is already abnormal, and things still happen in July and a half. Luo Qinghuan thinks that this female classmate named Yao Qin's father must have encountered something unclean on the grave mountain. But when it comes to other people's affairs, she just listens to it as a story. After all, her own family is not peaceful now. Although with Su Chen'an's help, her parents are still safe, the male ghost she met on the bus today and the incident of being slapped on the shoulder by something in the small forest still make her very uneasy. She has never seen any ghosts before, and this Qingming festival holiday has completely overturned her values. Quietly touching and chatting with Zhu Fian, Luo Qinghuan took out the novel she had hidden in her bookshelf to read. The male and female protagonists in the book overcame countless hardships, went through vicissitudes of life, and their love was full of passion. With just a flick of her finger, Luo Qinghuan's evening self-study ended. Luo Qinghuan and Zhu Fian happened to be the upper and lower bunks of the same dormitory. They went to the small supermarket together to buy some snacks. During this time, when they passed by the small forest during the day, Luo Qinghuan felt a little uneasy, but there was a Zhu Fian beside her who was not as scared as during the day. At night, Luo Qinghuan slept soundly, not knowing how she had returned to the bus of the day, sitting in the same position as during the day. She nervously looked around and found that the passengers in the carriage were all lifeless faces, with numb expressions and stiff limbs, like soulless puppets. Luo Qinghuan was a bit scared. She knew she was 100% dreaming now. What was terrifying was that the tongue she bit when she ran away from the sedan chair last time was not sharp enough. She had been struggling with her meals these days and really didn't have the courage to bite her again. Through the lights on in the carriage, Luo Qinghuan could see the road conditions clearly. The bus passed by the section where she had seen the male ghost before, and her heart suddenly rose to her throat. In just a few seconds, an electric scooter drove out from the side road. With a bump sound and the brakes of the bus, Luo Qinghuan could clearly see the man riding the electric scooter flying over 3 meters high and hitting the road heavily, with a puddle of blood under his head. Then, the bus they were riding on jolted and clearly ran over the man. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Infinite Loop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Infinite Loop. Luo Qinghuan was thrown onto the window in front of her due to the turbulence and hit her head. It happened to be where she had been injured before, and the pain made her burst into tears. As soon as she rubbed her head and sat down, she found that the bus had already stopped. Strangely, Everyone inside the carriage, including the driver, had disappeared. The dark wind whistled through the window and blew into her neck. Luo Qinghuan bit her lips and prayed to wake up quickly. If it didn't work out, she could just faint. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. At this moment, she heard a sound of bones moving, and then the bus suddenly moved back a bit. If it weren't for Luo Qinghuan's quick eyesight, she might have been hit in the head again. The bus had already stalled just now, and there was no one in the driver's seat. Luo Qinghuan didn't know why the car would automatically reverse. This scene is really bizarre. Luo Qinghuan tightly grasped the handrail inside the bus, fearing that the car would collide with the trees on the side of the road in a while. Fortunately, after the bus retreated about 5 meters, it once again turned off and the carriage regained peace. The hanging heart couldn't calm down in time. The man who had been hit and killed on the road climbed up in an extremely twisted and eerie posture. He stared fiercely at the bus that had hit and killed him, and let out a strange smile. Jie jie jie. Why did you hit me? Why did you hit me? I don't want to die, I don't want to die yet, why did you hit me instead of someone else? I don't want to stay on the road alone, you come and accompany me, you come and accompany me, you also die with me, jie 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 jie. The dead face of the male ghost is exactly the same as when Luo Qinghuan saw him in the daytime. The half-torn skin is so bloody that it is frightening. Luo Qinghuan's legs are weak and she is trembling back. Her will to survive forces her to calm down and try to reason with the male ghost. It's not my business, it's not my fault. You and I have no grievances or grudges, why do you keep pestering me? Please let me go, I'll go burn paper money for you tomorrow. You really don't have to pester me anymore. You come with me, you must die. You can't escape. I want to eat you, I can go home, eat you. The male ghost muttered malicious words and walked step by step towards the direction where Luo Qinghuan was. After a few breaths, he opened the car door. Luo Qinghuan watched the male ghost getting closer and closer to her, so she went out of her way to bite through the tip of her tongue. Suddenly, a smell of blood filled the air. When she opened her eyes again, the car was still that car, the ghost was still that ghost. Luo Qinghuan felt that her heart was about to stop beating. After being dumbfounded, she didn't pay much attention and decisively opened the window of the bus, jumping down and running away in the opposite direction to the male ghost. The male ghost behind him was lying outside the car window during the day, watching him drool, and now he keeps saying he wants to eat her. Luo Qinghuan concluded that it would not be a good thing if he really killed him in his dream, and maybe he would have died in reality. She doesn't want to be eaten without any residue after death. How can she reincarnate without a soul? I don't know if that guy died too long. Being a ghost for a long time is inhumane, and he can also do such immoral things that harm people's lives. Luo Qinghuan kept running a long distance without stopping, afraid of seeing a dead face when he turned around. But she was still a girl, and her physical strength couldn't keep up. Just when she doubted whether she was really hopeless, a black figure flew from far to near and hugged her in her arms. The robe blends with the night, embroidered with intricate patterns. Chen'an stands tall like a pine tree, exuding a sense of majesty. Even a mere little ghost dares to touch my wife and seek death. His voice was clear, and Luo Qinghuan was so excited that she almost cried. Chen'an, this guy, came at the right time. The male ghost who had been chasing Luo Qinghuan not far or near was clearly scared after seeing Chen'an. He shook his legs and turned his head to run, but his speed still slowed down a step. Chen'an took out a whip from somewhere and whipped it over. The male ghost was even whipped hard before he could even dodge, and then a green flame lit up all over his body, causing him to scream and disappear completely. The wind on the road was a bit cool, and a group of crows in the distance flew over their heads, shouting. It was very unlucky to see crows in this small place. Luo Qinghuan hugged Chen'an's waist, and just as she was about to open her mouth, she noticed a smell of blood in her mouth. I never expected my new wife to have this tongue-biting problem. Su Chen'an pinched Cairo Qinghuan's mouth with one hand and looked at it, chuckling and teasing. The tip of the tongue throbbed and the head felt a bit dizzy. Luo Qinghuan awkwardly buried his head in Su Chen'an's arms. It's really embarrassing. Every time I meet Su Chen'an, she's always causing self-harm. Luo Qinghuan's face pressed against Su Chen'an's sturdy chest, clearly sensing the vibration he emitted while laughing. It looks like this guy is quite happy. But my husband's waist is so thin, the material of this clothes is really soft. Poo. What kind of mess do I think every day? Luo Qinghuan tried hard to control herself from daydreaming, and then curiously asked Su Chen'an. Did you kill that male ghost? Why did he come to me? And I saw him during the day yesterday. I had never seen these before. Just now. It's no use biting the tip of my tongue. As soon as Su Chen'an appeared, he was so scared that he wanted to run away, indicating that he was not Su Chen'an's opponent. So the last time she bit her tongue and was able to regain her freedom under Su Chen'an's control, why is this time useless? This is not scientific. He is just a little ghost who died recklessly. If he dares to think of my wife, he will be completely scared. As for the matter of Madame's tongue bleeding is actually related to our marriage. While explaining to Luo Qinghuan, Su Chen'an couldn't help but laugh, and Luo Qinghuan's ears immediately turned red. Madame is a living person, and after marrying my lord, she can naturally be considered half of the underworld. Seeing something is not surprising. That little ghost died horizontally for less than 3 years. The big temple did not accept it, the small temple did not keep it, and he could not enter the underworld for reincarnation. His resentment was deep, and he dared not kill living people for fear of violating the underworld law. Naturally, he would take you for an attack. After all, if he succeeds in killing you and swallows your soul, his cultivation will soar and he will fall into the fierce ghost path, avoiding this cycle time and time again get lost. So that's what's going on. Killing a living person violates the law of the underworld, killing me is okay. Why has my life become so worthless? Luo Qinghuan exclaimed in grievances, and according to Su Chen'an's instructions, she will be able to see ghosts in the future. The key is that her little life is completely free from the protection of the laws of the underworld, and she is completely at the mercy of others. Su Chen'an's face turned cold as he gazed at her and spoke lightly. If Madame thinks it's not good, I can also take you away directly. Luo Qinghuan. Just out of the tiger's den and back into the wolf's den. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Married 10 more times. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Married 10 more times. Is your beautiful husband so unpredictable? Speaking is too cruel. Luo Qinghuan's small head shook like a tambourine. No, I think I'm doing pretty well now, really. In order to divert Su Chen'an's attention, she continued to ask. What you mean by loop is that he stays in place and repeats the process of death. She kept asking, but fortunately Su Chen'an was quite patient. After touching her silly hair, he answered her question. This kind of ghost with deep resentment after a sudden death will repeat the process of death once a day, unless someone excels before entering the underworld for reincarnation. Is this too inhumane? Luo Qinghuan always thought it was just a rumor, but he didn't expect it to be true. Madame has nothing to do in the mortal world, so let's go back to the mansion with my husband. Luo Qinghuan was sympathizing with those ghosts who died recklessly, and Su Chen'an uttered this sentence. Considering his previous promise to take him away, Luo Qinghuan instinctively wanted to break free from his embrace. Su Chen'an waved his sleeve and a luxurious sedan chair appeared in the middle of the road. The men and women who followed bowed, all dressed in the same ancient costume, no different from the living. Luo Qinghuan noticed that the people around the sedan chair were holding lanterns in their hands, which gave her a sense of traveling back to ancient times. Madam, rest assured that my husband will definitely send her back before dawn. Since you have married me, you will have to shuttle between the yin and yang realms in the future. You should also adapt more now. Su Chen'an swayed into the sedan chair with Luo Qinghuan in his arms, and his fingers lightly flicked on her forehead. So this guy isn't really going to take himself away. After taking this calming pill, Luo Qinghuan finally calmed down. To be honest, Su Chen'an's sedan chair was very warm inside, emitting a faint aroma. Several ghosts carrying sedan chairs were wearing black small jackets, braids tied, and had a shape similar to the 8 paper figures carrying sedan chairs during the wedding. Luo Qinghuan looked at them curiously. The maid holding a lantern beside her immediately turned her head and explained with a smile. The young ones don't often walk around in the mortal world. The last time we welcomed each other, we used our original bodies. Therefore, your highness has specially instructed us to transform ourselves to avoid scaring madam again. The maid was wearing a double bun, with beautiful apricot eyes and peach cheeks. As she spoke, their sedan chair floated into the air, and the maid also floated up. Fortunately, Luo Qinghuan's tolerance was much stronger than before, and she could clearly feel that the maid had no ill intentions towards her. She politely smiled at the maid. Luo Qinghuan sat in the sedan chair and looked around. In no time, she arrived at Su Chen'an's house, during which she saw several unfamiliar roads clearly. The maid who spoke before told her that it was the underworld road, invisible to the living, but this kind of underworld road is much faster than the road to the mortal world no matter where it goes. This time, Su Chen'an brought in, and Luo Qinghuan roughly understood that this house was a typical Chinese-style building, with 3 entrances and 3 exits. Along the way, there were many strange flowers and plants planted, all of which were varieties that Luo Qinghuan had never seen before. She probably guessed that these were all things from the underworld. Bride, 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 bride is so beautiful. Sister hug. As Luo Qinghuan was looking around the yard, a small pink jade carved child swayed over. He looked like he had just learned how to walk and didn't speak very fluently. At this moment, he had big eyes, cherry lips, and a cute look as he tilted his head up to embrace him. Luo Qinghuan felt that his heart was about to melt with him. Upon hearing the little one's voice just now, Luo Qinghuan judged that this little ghost was the one who had run into the wedding room to see the bride before, but accidentally released himself. At that time, she was extremely scared and didn't even bother to look at her life-saving benefactor. She didn't expect him to be so cute. Luo Qinghuan quickly picked up the little guy from the ground, his eyes shining brightly. Hey, who's this cute little kid from? Why is he so cute? Su Chen'an sneered at her appearance of picking up treasure. It's just a little ghost that I picked up, and I can't say for sure who abandoned it. This little ghost still has some foresight, and after arriving at my mansion, he has been relying on me not to leave. However, for the sake of staying with me for at most 3 years, I have taken care of him. Luo Qinghuan couldn't help but have a twitch on her face. Why would she casually mention a little ghost in Su Chen'an's mouth? She's so big, not to mention such a beautiful child. She hasn't even found a penny of steel coins. As the saying goes, people are more infuriating than ghosts. Is it her turn to be infuriating than ghosts? But can only stay for 3 years. That is to say, this little guy with a naive expression staring at him and laughing is dying recklessly. Although this is her first time seeing the little guy, Luo Qinghuan still feels very sorry for him. Fortunately, Su Chen'an said so, but Luo Qinghuan still noticed that the little ghost was wearing the most popular brand clothes of the season, and at first glance, he was full of energy and had a very good complexion. Little guy seems to be doing well here with Su Chen'an. Luo Qing happily hugged the little guy and played with him. Finally, he put him on the ground to go to school and walk, which was enjoyable for a while. Su Chen'an gave a glance to the servant next to him. After a while, the young servants moved 2 rocking chairs to the garden and prepared tea, fruits and dim sum, which was not very effective. After playing for a while, Luo Qinghuan felt a bit tired and lay on the rocking chair, gnawing on an apple without any bones. Su Chen'an didn't know when he would pull out a book to read, not to mention that this scene really had the taste of a wealthy young master. The leisurely and luxurious appearance poked into Luo Qinghuan's heart. Seeing that she had eaten almost enough, Su Chen'an closed the book and suddenly a small white porcelain bottle appeared in his hand. "Come here." Luo Qinghuan was taken aback for a moment, then realized that Su Chen'an was talking to her. For some reason, she suddenly trusted Su Chen'an, a ghost she had never met before. Without hesitation, she walked up to him. Su Chen'an stood up and approached, his slender fingers pinching her chin to signal her to open her mouth. Only then did Luo Qinghuan realize that Su Chen'an was planning to apply medicine to herself. During this period, she bit her tongue twice in her dream, each time seeing some blood. Although it was done in her dream, the wound was real. Su Chen'an took out a small spoon and poured some cream from a small porcelain bottle onto the wound. A cold and icy sensation quickly spread from the tip of his tongue, and it was no longer painful. The little person in Luo Qinghuan's heart is jumping and cheering. My husband is kind-hearted and gentle. According to this standard, she can get married 10 more times. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Needling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Needling. The next morning, before she could open her eyes, Luo Qinghuan was shaken like a tambourine. Qinghuan, wake up quickly. If you don't wake up late again, why are you laughing and following a flower all morning? Qinghuan. Zhu Fian casually touched Luo Qinghuan's face with cold water on her fingertips, causing her to shiver. What are you doing, Xiaoyan? My face is cold and hot, it's embarrassing. Luo Qinghuan suddenly lifted the blanket and got up from the bed. After playing with Zhu Fian for a while, she hurried to the classroom. However, she still found that the wound on her tongue had completely healed now. I didn't expect Su Chen'an's ointment to be so effective. If placed in the mortal world, it would definitely explode. However, Luo Qinghuan did not use any crooked ideas on this. Although she and Su Chen'an are considered husband and wife, Luo Qinghuan is well aware that marrying Su Chen'an is most coveted for his ability to protect the Luo family. The things in Fox Ridge are definitely not easy to deal with, otherwise so many immortals around would not have avoided their family's affairs. Su Chen'an offended such a powerful force for herself, and Luo Qinghuan could never do anything to plan against them. Luo Qinghuan and Zhu Fian walked hand in hand through the small forest of the school. Due to the fact that the sky was not yet bright, the trees here were dark and eerie. Hee 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 hee. Luo Qinghuan suddenly heard a sharp burst of laughter. The voice was extremely cold, as if laughing in her ear. Luo Qinghuan has goosebumps all over her body. When she was patted on her shoulder yesterday, she felt that there might be something dirty in this forest. But this was just a guess in her heart, and coupled with the terrifying male ghost outside the bus, she forgot about it. Luo Qinghuan's body was a bit stiff, but fortunately she didn't see any strange ghosts, so she quickened her steps and pulled Zhu Fian away from the forest. Until he ran far away, Luo Qinghuan didn't dare to look back. Coincidentally, when the two of them finished breakfast and walked out of the restaurant, they saw several girls pointing to a corner and whispering. Hey, isn't that Yao Qin? Why does she look like she's been beaten up? I don't know. As a girl, she usually listens to her teachers very well. How come she comes back from vacation with bruises and swollen faces? Did you get beaten up by your parents at home? One of the girls put forward her own opinion, but was soon refuted by the girl accompanying her. Don't talk nonsense, how could a parent beat up a child like this? A few girls murmured for a while, then brought up another topic. Luo Qinghuan followed their gaze and glanced at the girl named Yao Qin who was being discussed by them. She was thin, tall, and looked like a well-behaved girl. Although the voices of those girls were very quiet, Luo Qinghuan could hear them standing so far. Yao Qin couldn't have been unaware, but she just sat there quietly, her eyes slightly red. It looks really heartbreaking. Qinghuan, let's go. Zhu Fian tugged at Luo Qinghuan's sleeve and pulled her away. She is timid and rarely interacts with other classmates except for Luo Qinghuan. Seeing Yao Qin about to cry should have scared her. Although Yao Qin's situation is pitiful, Luo Qinghuan admits that she can't be of much help. Now, she only relies on Su Chen'an to protect her family through a secret marriage. Yao Qin's family should still seek help from the surrounding immortals, Taoists, and monks. Monday was particularly long, and after lunch, Luo Qinghuan was really tired and groggy, crawling on the table to sleep. In less than 2 or 3 minutes, a girl with a high ponytail walked into their classroom with a strong aura, and without saying a word, she started pulling Luo Qinghuan's hair. Luo Qinghuan was grabbed and fell to the ground with a loud cry, almost causing her buttocks to fall into 8 petals. Zhu Fian, who was sitting at her desk, was stunned and didn't know what to do as she watched the scene before her. The girl with a high ponytail moved quickly, pinching and stuffing at Luo Qinghuan before anyone could react. She also took out a silver shining object from her school uniform pocket and stabbed her. Luo Qinghuan saw with sharp eyes that it was a thin and long needle. I'll go. This girl with a fierce expression who is hitting her may not have any mental issues. Luo Qinghuan is absolutely certain that he doesn't know her. But she actually ran into the classroom and hit herself in front of so many classmates, and even prepared an injection in advance. This Nima is even more ruthless than Grandma Rong's hands. At least they only took a few, but she has a handful in her hand. If she had to do that, Luo Qinghuan probably wouldn't have lost a piece of meat. My heart is too malicious. She cursed in her heart and quickly picked up her stool to smash the high ponytail girl's leg. As the saying goes, a friend of the dead is not a friend of the poor. Everyone is selfish, let alone she is not a fool and insists on waiting to be beaten. The gaze of Gao Mawei staring at Luo Qinghuan made people shudder, and those who didn't know thought there was some deep-seated blood feud between them. Luo Qinghuan originally thought that her counterattack should be able to distance herself from Gao Mawei, so that she had enough time to run to the teacher or security guard for help. However, she completely underestimated Gao Mawei's determination to deal with her. She directly chose to ignore the stool that Luo Qinghuan swung onto her leg, bent down and grabbed Luo Qinghuan's ankle, and then plunged all the needles in her hand into her calf. The classroom instantly echoed with Luo Qinghuan's mournful cries, and many timid girls were scared by this sudden change and turned around to escape from the classroom. Luo Qinghuan doesn't usually talk to his classmates in class, so no one is willing to take the risk and pull the high ponytail girl away from this checkpoint. Fortunately, after being stunned for a while, Zhu Fian reacted and hurriedly pushed away the crowd and ran out. Luo Qinghuan vaguely heard her shouting while running. Qinghuan, don't be afraid. I'll go find the teacher right away. Blood quickly appeared on Luo Qinghuan's calves, and the beige tiles were instantly dyed red. It's not good for everyone to stand idly by in this situation. A few girls suggested that the boys in the class separate them from each other. Everyone approached with all their hands and legs, and it was strange that the tall ponytail girl looked thin, but her strength was not small. So many classmates in the class didn't hold on to her, on the contrary, many people fell heavily along her path. A few hot-tempered boys felt embarrassed after falling and immediately wanted to have a fit. Fortunately, at this moment, Zhu Fian ran over with her homeroom teacher and 2 security guards, followed by several male teachers who looked anxious and likely had a high ponytail. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Early Preparation for Future Events. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Early Preparation for Future Events. Several male classmates, along with the security guard, finally caught the high ponytail girl, and at this moment, Luo Qinghuan was also helped up by the female classmates in the class. Ho Mimi, what are you causing trouble? Do you know that your current behavior is illegal? The person speaking was the homeroom teacher of a high ponytail girl. At this moment, he stared at his students with a look of hatred and anger, his face turning pale with anger. Luo Qinghuan sat on the stool trembling, blood flowing from her calves and stomach as if she didn't want money. Her pants and socks were all dyed red, and she endured the pain and lifted them to take a look. It was indeed as she had expected before. The place where it was pierced is full of densely packed small holes, and those who see it are all suffering from panic disorder. The surrounding skin is red and swollen, which is really a bit unbearable. The onlookers and teachers all gasped for breath. Luo Qinghuan, don't be afraid for now. The teacher will take you to the hospital. The homeroom teacher glanced at the chaotic classroom, frowned, comforted Luo Qinghuan, and then called on a male classmate in the class to carry him out of the classroom. Zhu Fian also went to the hospital with her. Mimi didn't know what was going on. After being grabbed by several security guards, she struggled desperately, staring at Luo Qinghuan and wishing she could come up and tear her apart. This incident happened in front of everyone's eyes, and what was terrifying was that Mimi began to go crazy after Luo Qinghuan left. She not only bit the two security guards who had previously caught her, but also injured many classmates, causing a lot of public outrage for a while. Finally, after the school called the police, they came and took her away. Luo Qinghuan shed a lot of blood along the way, and coupled with being a little scared, she kept holding on to Zhu Fian and refused to let go. Fortunately, Luo's mother quickly rushed over. She still had a smell of oil fumes in her hands, clearly leaving behind her work and rushing over. Teacher, what exactly is going on? Our family Qinghuan has been very obedient since she was young. We have never been willing to hit her since she was young. How could she still be injured by classmates in school like this? My daughter is trembling all over. What heinous thing did she do? That girl wants to hit her like this. As Luo Mu spoke, she burst into tears in front of everyone in the ward. Luo Qinghuan's homeroom teacher is a middle-aged man with a big belly. When encountering such a situation, both the school and Mimi are responsible, and he is also very worried. He can only discuss with Luo's mother and go out to talk. According to the descriptions of her classmates, Mimi is usually a pure little girl who always does things based on her own heart. There are many classmates who have been bullied by her in school. But Luo Qinghuan and she have never had any interaction, let alone offending her. The school and Mimi's mother quickly rushed to the hospital, hoping that the two families would go private. The He family was willing to compensate for some medical and nutritional expenses, but they didn't want the situation to continue to escalate. No matter what, Mimi is still just a high school student. If this matter continues like this, it will not be good for her reputation. Although Luo's father and mother love their daughter, they still consider the face of the school and reluctantly agree to this matter. Luo Qinghuan did not provide any feedback on this matter and took 2 days off from work to follow Luo's mother back after being bandaged in the hospital. At dusk, Luo Qinghuan played computer games for a while and was about to go downstairs to find something to cushion her stomach. Together, they saw silly second sister standing outside their house wall through a veil. She was wearing a red coat, with loose hair and a pair of gloomy eyes staring at Luo Qinghuan's room. Luo Qinghuan never forgot the day her father came back, when this foolish second sister ran over to beat her, and the most terrifying thing was that she even called herself the bride. Even her family doesn't know about this matter. For a moment, Luo Qinghuan felt a bit strange because the silly second sister's favorite place to stay was either the village or their own doorstep, and she rarely came to the Luo family's side. Now she suddenly runs to her doorstep and stares, isn't she guarding outside, preparing for a surprise attack? Luo Qinghuan felt a bit hesitant in her heart. After all, she was not a match for silly second sister. Moreover, crazy people like silly second sister don't have to bear legal responsibility even if they cripple or kill her. Luo Qinghuan is planning to quickly go downstairs to inform Luo's father and mother, so as not to be ambushed by silly second sister as soon as she leaves. The new lady is dying. That ghost has come to pick you up. Silly's second sister's gaze followed Luo Qinghuan's footsteps, as if the gauze curtain pulled up inside couldn't block her sight at all. Meanwhile, her words were clearly transmitted to Luo Qinghuan's ears. The white gauze curtain hanging on the window of Luo's house does not affect the view from inside out, but it is very difficult to look inside from outside. Moreover, Luo Qinghuan is pulling on the thick curtain inside, and there is only a small gap in the window. Does Silly's second sister really have such good eyesight to see her in the second-floor room from under the wall? For a moment, Luo Qinghuan felt that something was wrong with this foolish second sister in the village. Our family has been unlucky enough these days. If someone says such heartless words outside, isn't it intentional to know that our family is not good enough to come and cheat money? Wearing those clothes can ruin the monk's appearance, and it's not certain who will die first. The sound of the gate closing came, and then Luo Mu came back cursing, as if she had been angry outside. Luo Qinghuan didn't care about Silly's second sister anymore and jumped down to embrace her. In the living room on the first floor, Luo's father and mother were talking, and Luo Qinghuan listened attentively at the corner. I just went out to the field to find some vegetables, and when I came back, a monk kept nagging and saying that our daughter married a dead person, and sooner or later she would go down to the underworld to accompany them. You also advised me to prepare for my daughter's affairs as soon as possible. The uncle over there has already started to take action, and he said that it's hard to say if our daughter is going well. Preparing in advance can also make her walk more dignified. Do you think this matter is unlucky or not? He doesn't inquire about my temper either. I picked up my shoes and kicked him out of the village, ba ba ba. What kind of people are these every day? Both Luo's father and mother's faces were not very good, and Luo Qinghuan's heart trembled upon hearing these words. Just now, Silly's second sister stood in the corner of their house and said she was going to die. Luo Qinghuan retreated to the dark corner of the corner, took a deep breath to force herself to calm down, and sorted through the events that had happened these days. First, Luo's father went missing, grandmother found herself a ghostly husband in the underworld, and later on, it was about Himimi. From Himimi to Silly's second sister, they were all full of hostility towards themselves for no reason, and it was all after she and Su Chen'an got married in secret. The monk her mother just met, like Silly's second sister, said that Su Chen'an wanted to kill her. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Knocking your head with a small stick. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Knocking your head with a small stick. Luo Qinghuan's thoughts were very chaotic. She had no idea what was going on at this moment. In theory, Himimi, Silly's second sister, and the suddenly appearing monk should not have any intersection, and the Luo family has not offended them. These people have no reason to curse and persecute her. Too many coincidences carry a hint of conspiracy. These guys don't like our family's happiness day by day. I'll go find that monk and let the old and young men in the village see if our family surnamed Luo is letting them bully us. Father Luo slammed the table and stormed out the door, while Mother Luo followed in a fit of anger and anxiety. Upon seeing this posture, Qinghuan Luo also panicked. Father Luo is clearly going out to repair that monk. No matter how much the other party said, they were all hands and feet, and her father was older, injured, and even lame. Luo Qinghuan was afraid that Luo's father would suffer a loss, so she quickly jumped a few steps and shouted. Mom and Dad, please don't. For some unknown reason, Luo Qinghuan's calf was swollen from where the needle had pierced it. Her entire leg was swollen and she had to reluctantly put on a pair of slippers. Due to limited mobility, by the time she jumped out without saying a few words, Luo's father and mother had already gone out together. Luo Qinghuan didn't give up either, jumping and chasing after her. When passing by the door, Luo Qinghuan was still a bit nervous. Fortunately, Silly's second sister didn't know where she had gone during this time. When Luo Qing arrived at the village entrance, his father and mother were already walking back. Moreover, it seemed that there was no physical conflict between them and the monk mentioned by Luo Mu, and Luo Qinghuan breathed a sigh of relief in secret. "Mom and Dad, you didn't argue with that monk, did you?" Luo Qinghuan had a fine sweat hanging on his forehead and was panting slightly. Luo Mu pulled out a forced smile and said, "Look at you, child, why did you learn to eavesdrop? Your father and I are both adults now, so we naturally have our own sense of propriety. Why haven't you jumped out of this pig's hoof yet? I'm telling you, our family doesn't have much money now. Where else can we hurt ourselves? Your father and I don't have the money to take you to the hospital. Just lie in bed and cry." Although Luo's mother said so, Luo Qinghuan knew that she actually cared about herself. Seeing Luo's father walking home in silence, Luo Qinghuan didn't think much and clung to his mother's arm, jumping. Her comical actions provoked ridicule from several children in the village, and her originally nervous heart calmed down upon hearing their laughter. At dinner, Father Luo panicked and handed his daughter a glass of water, reminding her. "Qinghuan, have a glass of water and go back to your room early to rest. How many courses will you miss during these 2 days of vacation? If we don't get into college in the future, how can your mother and I behave in the village?" Luo Qinghuan was taken aback, not expecting that his father would suddenly become concerned about his studies. However, after careful consideration, Father Luo saved face, and it wasn't too strange to say this. The Luo family has no good social connections in the village, and coupled with being a girl herself, most elderly people in such small places prioritize boys over girls, thinking that girls are inferior to boys. Despite many girls dropping out of school in the village, she still went to high school, which has already made some people in the village jealous. If she didn't get into college, it would be embarrassing for Luo's father. "Got it, Dad." Luo Qinghuan took the water glass, drank it all in one breath, and went upstairs. He didn't notice that Luo's father was standing on the first floor and looking at Luo's mother, with calculations hidden in his eyes. Luo Qinghuan went upstairs, but his mind was still thinking about the day, and he was confused and didn't know when he fell asleep. "Madam, madam, madam." In her sleep, Luo Qinghuan suddenly heard Su Chen'an's voice. She got up and walked out of her mind in a daze. When she turned to close the door, she was surprised to find someone lying on the bed. "Luo Qinghuan. What's going on?" Luo Qinghuan's heart thumped as she walked downstairs uncontrollably with the door closed. The rooms of Luo's father and mother were quiet, and the house was out of sight. However, Luo Qinghuan walked leisurely. She was very familiar with the strange feeling of being manipulated, which was caused by that guy Su Chen'an during the wedding. That guy is somewhat domineering in his actions, and Luo Qinghuan knows that, but they have already spoken their minds. So why control yourself this time? Is he really like what silly second sister and that strange monk said? Luo Qinghuan was extremely scared in her heart. She knew that if Su Chen'an really wanted her life, she had no chance to resist. Just as her heart was beating wildly, her fingers were already resting on the handle of the door. As long as she opened the door, she could see Su Chen'an. At the critical moment, Luo Qinghuan's hand seemed to touch a powerful barrier, and a powerful force immediately bounced her back onto the bed from the entrance. Then Su Chen'an's voice came this time. "Madam and I have been newlywed for a few days. Seeing that I have protected your Luo family, will you not want me?" Luo Qinghuan was a bit confused. Everything that just happened was really too strange. What does Su Chen'an's words mean? Without time to think, her head became drowsy again. When she opened her eyes again, she saw a dark figure hunched over her bed, holding something in her hand. "You heartless stinky girl. Old lady, as I get older, I can't help but worry. For the sake of the lives of your family of 3, I begged my grandfather and grandmother to find such a rare and good marriage. Why are you so stupid? Your parents are also 2 idiots. They believe whatever others say, and a pair of pigs have no conscience." The dark figure chattered and cursed for a long time, while Luo Qinghuan lay heavily in bed, conscious and motionless, still knowing that this was her grandmother. However, the old lady now looks very excited, getting more and more angry as she scolds, with a strong attitude of hating iron but not becoming steel. I don't care. If you little girl doesn't want to go to the underworld to accompany my old lady earlier, hurry up and coax my grandson in law back. Otherwise my old lady will come back and cause trouble for you, humph. I'm so angry. The old lady cursed and even raised something in her hand to tap Luo Qinghuan's head as she spoke. Hiss, it really hurts. Luo Qinghuan is the only daughter in the family. She was also beaten when she was disobedient when she was a child, but over the years, as she grew older, her father and mother never hit her again. She had never seen her own breasts, and had no idea how angry the old lady was. I ran to the bedside in the middle of the night and cursed my entire family, even threatening to go home and make a scene. The scariest thing is in the middle of the night, when a ghost grandmother hits your head with a small stick. It's really scary. End of this chapter.